Good morning and welcome to the Leadership Empowerment Program 2021 Institute. My name is Kavita Sao and I am the coordinator of LEP. I have had the pleasure of working with the 2020-2021 LEP scholars over the last 9 months, and it has been an incredible journey. COVID boxed us into a virtual format for the entire 2020-2021 program year. But these amazing professionals learned to roll with the punches and go with the flow. This morning, I am here to introduce you to this elite group of individuals. Our very first scholar is Amanda Dever from the Office of Student Involvement.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Next, we have Shawntrese Riley Stanford from Pre-Health and Pre-Law Advising.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Next, we have Elizabeth Richner from Human Resources.
Welcome, everyone.
Next up, we have Dr. Elizabeth Smock from the College of Graduate Studies.
Good morning, everyone. We're so happy you joined us.
Next is Erin Pollin from Communications and Marketing.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Then we have Dr. Harrison Unge from College of Undergraduate Studies.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Next up is Isabel Hagen from Facilities and Safety. I'm so sorry, Isabel.
It's all good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Then we have Dr. Lucas Noboa from College of Nursing.
Good morning.
Then Dr. Linnell Hodge from Housing and Residence Life.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an exciting day with us today.
Then we have Dr. Magdalena Pasarica from College of Medicine.
Hi, thank you all for joining us.
Next up is Marissa Remicchio from the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Then we have Mary Rubin from the library.
Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Next up is Dr. Orrin Smith from CCIE Accreditation and Analytics and Assessment.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Then we have Dr. Vivian Ortiz from Student Development and Enrollment Services. Last, but certainly not least, we have Courtney Hand from Career Services, and she will serve as our MC this morning. Thank you, Courtney. I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. And I'm proud to serve as this narrator through today's journey. Thank you again for joining us this morning for the 2021 Leadership Empowerment Programs Institute, LEP Talk, our community, our campus, our stories. On behalf of this year's cohort, we are excited to share with you the valuable speakers and their messages today. So let's get started. This morning, providing us with our official welcome, we have President Cartwright. Alexander Cartwright began his role as UCF's 6th president on April 13th, 2020, in the midst of, the beginning of this pandemic year. Previously, he served as a chancellor of the University of Missouri with an appointment as a professor in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department in their College of Engineering. He is also an internationally recognized researcher and scholar in the area of optical sensors. As a first-generation college student whose journey to higher education was not traditional, Dr. Cartwright understands and prioritizes the need to build successful outcomes for students from all backgrounds and is dedicated to diversity, inclusion, and equity on campus. Dr. Cartwright, we welcome you here today.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to everyone to the annual Leadership Institute. Certainly, it's great to see so many of you here and so many of you that are part of the Leadership Empowerment Program. You're all scholars and clearly going to help this institution to move forward. It's my honor, honestly, to be here, to be able to open up this event And as Courtney was mentioning, since I've joined this institution, it really was the beginning of the pandemic, and it continued on since then. And I will tell you that one of the things that I've been so impressed by are the amazing people that are here. To me, this past year for any institution would have been difficult, but I honestly believe that it was probably as smooth as we could have made it for this past year. And it's because of people like you. It's our faculty, our staff, our students that were all committed to what we were trying to do. We made the best of an incredibly difficult year. And I am honored to be part of this and honored to know that there are additional people here ready to lead. We've been able to recruit exceptional faculty, staff, and students. And really what we want to do is create an environment that best empowers you and helps you to achieve your goals. And I'm grateful that we have programs like the Leadership Empowerment Program and that a Leadership Institute where you're able to learn even more about how we might be able to do additional things for this institution, what you might how you might continue to grow is important to all of us. It will allow you to network, exchange ideas, and grow stronger together. I'm really pleased to know that so many people are interested in working together and to continue to move forward in your own careers as individuals, but also thinking about what that might mean for the institution. I want to see that you continue to take advantage of opportunities, that we continue to provide opportunities like this to advance our people, because you're the greatest asset we have. You're what makes this institution what it is. And I've often talked about it's so remarkable to come here and meet so many people that are just willing to get things done. And it's exciting to be a part of that, that environment. I know you've demonstrated what it takes. You've been meeting online, building programs like this, trying to figure out how you can continue to get to know each other and benefit to the maximum extent from a program like this, and doing it all in virtual spaces. So I congratulate you and thank you for continuing to push forward during this difficult time. There really is very few limits to what we can do when we come together and collaborate. And I am excited for what's in store for us today, and certainly excited to get to know all of you. And I look forward to being able to take a photo in some way with all of you. When I saw all those photos going around earlier with previous classes, I look forward to that. I look forward to us being able to get together. I want to congratulate all of you, congratulate our LEP scholars who are here today, and you'll become our alumni, and we'll continue to improve UCF's community. And I know that'll be driven because of your passion and your leadership and love of this place. And I look forward to working with you for many years in the future. So with that, go Knights and charge on.
Awesome. Thank you for your welcome, President Cartwright. We appreciate you being here this morning and your ongoing support. Next, we have Dr. Butler to provide his welcome and remarks. Dr. Kent Butler is the Interim Chief Equity and Inclusion and Diversity Officer at the University of Central Florida and a National Association of Chief Diversity Officer and Higher Education Fellow. He's a professor of counselor education and former faculty fellow of inclusive excellence within the Office of the Provost. Dr. Butler is an American Counseling Association Fellow and President-elect of the association for the 2021-2022 year. He served in the Association for Multicultural Counseling and Development as president. ACA Governing Council representative, and proud member of the AMCD's Multicultural Counseling Competencies Revisions Committee, which produced the Multicultural Social Justice Counseling Competencies. Dr. Butler, we welcome you here this morning.
Hotep, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today to welcome you all and to be a part of this extravaganza. I am so proud of the LEP cohort this year for sticking it out and realizing that they could do this, whether it was in the pandemic or whether it was sitting together on campus. But they challenged themselves to see through all the trials and the tribulations, just like true scholars do. And it's so exciting. It's absolutely exciting to be here today to see what you all have in store for us. I know that you have some phenomenal keynote speakers today, and you all went through all of the things that were necessary to put together such a dynamic program. The poster sessions that you all are going to provide for us, I've seen you all, I heard about all of the things that you were doing together, trying to find this and find that so that you can make this a very, very rewarding experience, not just for yourselves, but for those who are here in attendance. So with that, I just want to just tell you all that the pride that I have in this cohort for sticking it out and for making sure that today happens is just goes beyond repair. And so I also want to tell those who are here viewing and watching today that these individuals really took the year by storm and made sure that they learned. They took in the lessons that were coming from the various panelists who have come and spoken before them. They took the opportunity to learn and to grow. So those of you all who are out there looking for individuals who are go-getters and initiators and things of that nature, I would ask that you consider them when you're looking for new positions in your role. And so go Knights, vamos Knights. I'm so proud, I'm so happy. I can't wait to hear from you all and from Dr. Andrews and from Dr. German. You all have put together a very great program for today. And I can't help but sit back and beam with pride because this is coming out of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I want to thank Kavita Sao for being a part of the coordination of this, and also to each and every one of you all. You have my heart, and I am just so excited for you and your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Butler, for your welcome remarks. I am honored to introduce this year's keynote speaker, Dr. Edwana Andrews. Dr. Edwana Andrews is the Assistant Vice President for Community Support here at UCF. She has worked in higher education for over 18 years and has served in a variety of roles within student affairs. Her career has included developing student leaders, establishing a department, creating programs, providing platforms to decrease barriers, and being an advocate for all students. Dr. Andrews works with students, faculty, and staff to create purposeful action that leads to accessible and inclusive UCF campus. Dr. Andrews is a 3-time graduate and very proud alum of the University of Central Florida, earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in Advertising and Public Relations, a Master's of Arts degree in Educational Leadership, and a PhD in Sociology. Additionally, Dr. Andrews teaches undergraduate courses in sociology, interdisciplinary studies, and strategies for success, and serves as a UCF ambassador to community organizations such as the City of Orlando's Mayor's MLK Commission and the American Heart Association. Without further ado, Dr. Edwana Andrews.
Good morning. Thank you, Courtney, for such a great introduction. You've really made me sound awesome. I am excited and honored to have the invitation to provide the keynote address for this year's LEP Institute. As an LEP alum, I know the hard work that the individuals have put into making this institute happen, especially overcoming the barriers of providing it in a virtual format, as well as making sure the sessions and the speakers are engaging. And so I just want to commend all of of the LEP Scholars this year for persevering through and making LEP Institute happen for 2021. So for today, I want to kind of just really have a conversation. I understand we're in a virtual environment, and so we can do a little talk back when we get to the Q&A session, but I really want it to be a conversation. And so I want to start out by saying on Sunday, I was driving around Orlando and I started to get excited as I noticed store after store was closed. There was an empty parking lot here, empty parking lot there. Stores were closed for Easter. I was thinking, wow, the actions of some of these stores are actually lining up with their words and their commitments, at least for that day. And I was also thinking, wow, these stores are telling the story that they want their customers and their employees to know about what they value. And so I want to speak for a few moments this morning on, are you living the story that you want to tell? Because this is your story. It's not your supervisor's story. It's not your colleague's story. It's not your student's story. It's not UCF's story. It's yours. And it's important to understand your story and what story you want to tell, because as you're navigating through your journey, you're developing your story. And so I ask you again to really consider, are you living the story you want to tell? Because if not, and you want to adjust it, it will require you to do some things differently. I would like to offer a few ideas for you to consider today as you ponder our question of, are you living the story you want to tell? So let's first start out by kind of getting into a posture of reflection. And let's ask ourselves this first question. Are you renting or owning your journey? For real, for real. Ask yourself, are you renting or owning your journey? Because there is a difference, and your answer impacts the story you want to tell. The difference between renting and owning your journey is owning is being active in creating outcomes, versus renting is relinquishing control and allowing the conditions around you and others to dictate your outcome. I'll break down renting versus owning even further. So when you're renting your journey, you're allowing someone else to set your direction. You're waiting for opportunities to be handed out to you. And let's be honest, sometimes when we're renting our journey, we're not very interested in our responsibilities, our duties. Sometimes we're not interested in being present, and we find ways to not be present. But when you're owning your journey, it's a different mindset. You're taking an active role in creating the outcomes and navigating change. When you're owning your journey, you also understand the importance of personal branding, because personal branding is a long-term commitment in you. And because you own your journey, you understand the value of the personal brand of you. So really take some time to consider what is or what are the barriers to you owning your journey versus renting your journey. The next thing I want to offer up to you for consideration as you're pondering our main question of, are you living your story, is location matters. So if you have ever considered buying a property, or maybe you have purchased the property, you know one of the first things the realtor has to sell you on is the location. Because if the location is not right and it does not allow you to thrive, that property is a no-go. Well, I want to share with you a little secret. You might want to lean in on this one. Location matters, not always position or classification. Now, I know you like, what? Yeah. So being in the right location can be everything. The right location can put you in the room with the right people. The right location can allow you the opportunity to operate in your purpose. The right location allows you an opportunity to add to your story or tell your story. Let me share with you how location helped me to contribute to my story that I'm living. When we began to plan for the downtown campus, and there were various groups that were meeting about different matters concerning UCF and Valencia coming together, us being in the downtown Paramore community, us being in the city of Orlando, we were meeting about all different matters. And so we had all these different work teams. And I wanted to be a part of one of those work teams because I was trying to figure out, as I was serving as Director of Social Justice and Advocacy, how would my area fit in serving the community downtown? How would my area serve our Paramore community? And then I was also thinking, how would I, as a UCF employee, serve the Paramore community, the residents? Because while I did not grow up in Orlando, I still considered the Paramore community my people. And so I wanted to serve them. I wanted to do what was right for them. I wanted to be a part of ensuring that UCF was coming to be of the community and not just in the community. And so I had not been asked to be a part of any of these groups that I really wanted to be a part of because I wanted to know and I wanted to see how I can contribute. And so I was sent to a meeting on behalf of my supervisor. And in that particular meeting, there was conversation and people were going around sharing. And so this one person shared, yes, there's a meeting the following week talking about downtown community engagement with Paramore residents. And I was like, ah. And so I'm taking notes. I noted the date, I noted the time and the location. And I just made a commitment. I'm like, I am going to this meeting. I was not invited. I didn't even ask for an invitation or inquire about who I could talk to get an invitation. I just showed up. I made sure I showed up a little bit early, but not too early. You know, I didn't want to be that first person. They're like, well, who are you? But I showed up just a little bit early. So the door was open. There were a few people at the table. I began conversation with them and all that. And by the time the meeting commenced, it was like, oh, okay. It was just considered that everyone at the table was there because they had been invited and they had something to contribute. Well, I had not been invited, but I certainly had something to contribute. And so no one knew that I didn't have an invitation. Well, they may know now, but you know, it's already done with. But I showed up because I wanted to learn how not only my department could serve the community, but also how I could serve the community, because that was important as I serve as an employee at the university. I always say, UCF, we're better than this, we're better than this. And so me being an active servant is part of my story. And so I wanted to make sure that I was there. And so in that situation, location mattered. Had I not been in that meeting and learned about the other meeting and showed up to that meeting, I would not have been able to be as involved as I have been with our downtown campus and working very collaboratively and closely with the Director of Community Engagement with Valencia and UCF producing programming. I have countless other stories about how location matters, from an admin assistant realizing that the office was missing the mark on not providing programming about intimate partner violence, and how she took it upon herself to provide that program. Location matters. And for those of us who have had the wonderful experience of full-time working remotely, and also the joy of our children learning full-time remotely, we know how much location matters. It certainly matters for me when my son hits fourth period, because fourth period is percussion. And he has a drum pad, and he also has a full drum set in his room, and a guitar, and a very loud amp. So when I was working full-time remote, it was important for me to be on the other side of the house during fourth period if I wanted some type of peace in my working environment. So again, location matters, because in that situation, it didn't matter that I was his mom and I'm paying the bills and I'm this and I'm that. He's in fourth period percussion. He's doing what his percussion teacher is teaching him. He doesn't care if it's bothering me because he's in school. So again, location matters, not always position and classification. So now let's start talking about branding, because we're still pondering that question of, are you living the story you want to tell? And so with branding, it plays such a pivotal role in the story that you're telling, because your brand is you. You are your brand. You're the owner of you. Nobody can do you the way you can do you, point blank, period. Personal branding is an ongoing process of establishing your image, establishing your story. Look at it from this perspective. When you are not in the room and your name is laid beautifully on a table, what's the story that is told about you, about your name? Or what do people currently say about you? So what story are you currently telling? Sometimes there's an opportunity for us to ask others that we trust for personal feedback, of saying, hey, can you give me some feedback? Like, when you hear me, my name, what are some things that come to mind? And see what they say. And if you like what they say, all right. If you don't like what they say, it's up to you to make a determination of how you want to change it, adjust it, impact it. Also, does your current brand align with your core values? I'll be honest, and I know this is being broadcast and recorded, but I'm always transparent. There was a time when my core values did not align with my brand. And I had to be willing to admit to myself, which was not easy, because it required me to grow, and it required me to also adjust. For those who know me, I consider myself to be the biggest cheerleader for others. I'm good at providing words, dances, songs, whatever is needed to help people make it through their day, make them smile, or what have you. Yet, when it came time for me to apply to doctoral programs, I was afraid. And the reason why I was afraid was because I had been rejected from other programs because my GRE score was low. And so I knew that in order to be a viable, good candidate for a doctoral program, I needed to retake the GRE. But I was afraid because math is just not my thing. English, all day, got you. Words, me and words, we're one. But math is not my thing. And so I was afraid of retaking the GRE, not raising my score, and being rejected yet again. But what happened was, as I was working with our wonderful students, I was working with my wonderful colleagues, encouraging them to overcome their barriers. I was becoming a hypocrite. And every time I would tell them to push harder, to dig in deep, to study more, to figure out a way to make themselves successful or set themselves up for success, I would feel this little twinge in my heart and in my stomach, like, oh, I'm saying things that I'm not doing. And in those moments, I realized that I was not in alignment with my core value of integrity. My brand was not in alignment with my core value of integrity. Now, nobody sees that, but I knew it. I knew it. And I had to figure out how to fix it because I'm not a fan of hypocrites. And one thing about me, I enjoy being my number one fan. And if I was going to continue to encourage people, support people, and help push them over their barriers, I had to do the same thing for me. I couldn't walk around and being a hypocrite. I could not do it. And so I had to figure it out. I had to dig in deep. And so it meant hiring a tutor. It meant taking GRE classes. It meant doing a lot of things, studying for months and months and months on end to take the GRE, get the score that was needed, and successfully be accepted to the UCF Sociology PhD program. And so I had to do that for myself because my brand was not in alignment with my core value of integrity. So as you're pondering the question of am I living the story I want to tell, you have to look at your brand. You have to look at those core values because there needs to be some alignment. Because if there is no alignment and you started feeling this certain, you need to address it. You really do. And so what drives me to stay true to living my story, the one that I want to tell, is that the right words at the right time can make a difference. The right person at the right time can make change. I want to close with this, a little bit of my story. I am from the old porcelain foot tub, from bleach smells and bergamot hair grease. I am from the fireplace in the living room and the taste of a juicy burger with a pickle from the Whites Only Country Club. I am from the gardenia smelling front yard with fully loaded mango trees and a broken villa bush. I'm from crab boils and turtles in a 5-gallon bucket, from Eunice Ruby and Eunice Algae. I'm from weekends with Grandma Lily Bell and Granddaddy and the smell of Piccadilly's on Sundays after church. I'm from what I'll be in my Lord, and I'm coming up on the rough side of the mountain and I'm doing my best. I'm from sitting out on the avenue and waving at Mr. Bonk Bonk. I'm from East Manatee County, and I remember to keep saying good morning. And I like cheese in my grits. I am Dr. Edwana Andrews, and I am living the story that I want to tell. I thank you all for listening to this message, and I hope that I was able to provide you with some things to consider. I know I asked a lot of questions, but that's part of interrogating yourself or reflecting with yourself on, are you living the story that you want to tell? It takes some reflecting, it takes some interrogating of who you are and your character and your brand and your journey, determining if you're renting or owning your journey. And so with that, I would like to be able to take any questions that anyone has so we can get this dialogue going.
Absolutely, Dr. Andrews, and thank you for your message. We, at this time, we want to open it up for Q&A, like Dr. Andrews mentioned. And again, as she stated at the beginning, she wanted this to be a dialogue. So we welcome your questions. And we'll get started with the first one here. Okay, Dr. Andrews?
Okay.
First one says, I think we can't, let's see. Thinking about your story and showing up to the community engagement meeting for downtown, that was pretty bold. Do you have any advice for us who want to courageously show up, but not necessarily be arrogant or obnoxious, other than that being that first person, you know, outside of someone being that first person there, or, you know, making, I guess, a scene in some type of way where that person would be uncomfortable. So, and also just to kind of feed off of that, give us a little bit of elaboration of what you were feeling when you were there, when you showed up, when you kind of engaged without this invitation.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And absolutely, it was a bold move. And I would be lying if I told you I was not nervous, I wasn't scared, because I didn't know who was going to be in this meeting. I just knew there was a meeting, and I showed up, and so it could have been very much they had been meeting for a long time and they knew everyone, and they'd be like, who is you? You need to leave if you're not here for somebody else. But luckily it wasn't like that. And so I will say this, I have never shown up to a meeting that I have been invited to or not invited to without having something to add to the table, without having something of value to contribute. And so I never enter into a meeting with a posture of arrogance, because that people will sense that, they'll sense that vibe. And so I always enter into a meeting of, I am here to work in collaboration with the team on whatever our end goal is. And I am here to make sure that I can add value and voice. And so like I said, like it's absolutely a bold move, and I can contribute a lot of my boldness to my mother, Eunice. She raised me she would say certain things, and so she would be like, you walk into a job looking for a position, never be afraid to leave looking for a position. Now, you know, do have some responsibilities. Again, I have a child and he's going to be going to school soon, but you know, I govern myself that way, and I just make sure that I'm always willing to be open to listening. I don't enter into a meeting with preconceived notions. I may have some ideas in my head, but I'm still going to be open to listening. I'm not going to sit there like this and, oh my gosh, when they going to stop so I could talk? That's not who I am, because that's not what I was trying to do. Because as I shared, I wanted to know how my department and myself at UCF could serve the community. And so that required a servant type of posture to be at that table. Did I fully answer the question? Because I think there might have been a second part.
think so. And we've had a few follow-ups when it comes to that. And with respect to, how do you know when it's okay to show up? And I think you mentioned a little bit about that value there, knowing that you're going to bring value. And how do you get over the fear? I think that's another question. Any guidance on that? I think it's natural to feel the fear, but how do you kind of overstep that fear and move forward?
Yeah. So the way that I overcame that fear was my purpose for going to that meeting without an invitation. And so if someone asked me, like, why are you here? Who invited you or what have you? I was prepared to say that I heard about this meeting and I'm here because I serve as Director of Social Justice and Advocacy, and I want to know how my department can help serve this community, as well as how I, as a UCF employee, can help serve this community, how I can help add voice to whatever the plan is going to be to engage the community. And so I was prepared for that. And like I said, like words are my thing. And so I was still fearful because, again, I didn't know who it was. I was just a director at the time, so I didn't know if these were VPs or whatever. But I was like, this is my goal for being there. And so I was focused on that purpose. Like that's why I'm there. And then I also too, if you've ever been in my office, I have a lot of sticky notes on my desk. And a lot of the sticky notes will be quotes that I've read or something that I've seen that I will write down on a sticky note. I have these cards right here under my monitor that I can read. And so when I have those negative thoughts, I try to look at something positive. I surround myself with positive words and messaging. For my birthday this past month, my staff put together this beautiful collage of pictures and quotes and things from students, because they know that I love, what students say and memories that we have and their experience with me. And so when I'm having those days where it's hard and it's late and I'm tired, and I just read those and those help to recenter me. That helps me to get past my fear. And fear is a real thing. It is absolutely a real thing, because when I finally made the decision to dig in deep and study for the GRE, part of the story I didn't tell was when I was taking the GRE prep class, I was the oldest one in the prep class. And I'm like, should I really be doing this? Should I really be doing this? And I remember on break going into the bathroom and I had made a plan. I'm like, okay, Edwana, we're on break. We got about 10 more minutes. Go grab your stuff, get in your car, go. You good. You good, girl. Just be done. Be done. And I messed around and dropped my phone. And when I picked up my phone, my phone is always locked. But when I picked up my phone, somehow it was open. And it was open to a story that I had been reading about Rosa Parks, but it was sharing a more detailed, different story. And it was talking about, what was going through her head during the time of the boycott and why she decided to be the person and stuff. And she said that in that moment, she made the decision to end her relationship with fear. And I said, what? So what I did was I washed my phone, because I'm also sanitary. I just can't, it fell on the floor. And I went, grabbed me a water and sat back down and finished out the course. Because in that moment, I decided I was not going to let fear control me in taking the GRE. And so with fear, you have to, because it could be overwhelming, but you have to just take it little by little. And so if you're like, you know what, I'm going to go to this meeting. I'm going to add value to this conversation. I'm not going to let fear stop me from going to this meeting, adding value to this conversation. Do it. Because you never know.
Thank you, Dr. Andrews. We do have another question from the audience here. It says, as you know, most of us deal with imposter syndrome when we're being in certain spaces. How do you suggest getting out of your head, quote unquote, when you put yourself in that headspace?
That's a tough one too. And I think about some advice that one of my colleagues gave me years ago. And she is bold and she is fierce. And I remember her, me having a conversation with her because she had just gotten a VP position, and she was the first Latina at the institution. And so I was just talking with her about, girl, you VP at a institution, Latina, like what? And she told me, she said, without flinching or blinking her eyes, she said, I deserve to be here. And so for me, when I have those moments, I channel my inner diva. And I say, I deserve to be here. There have been times when I have gone into rooms in meetings and I have been the only female there. I have been the only Black female there, but I'm like, I deserve to be here. There was one particular time when I went to a meeting and I was running a little behind. And so when I got there, the only seat that was available was at the head of the table. And I'm like, what? And so I was like, I did that for a moment. I said, nope, I'm supposed to be at this meeting because I was invited. So I'm going to sit at the head of the table because that's where I was positioned to be. That was a seat that was left open for me. And so sometimes we have to take advantage of the seats that are left open for us and sit in them and operate in our purpose. And yes, our knees may be shaking and we may be like, I cannot believe this, but we don't show it. And so I would say when dealing with imposter syndrome is really surround yourself with quotes that speak life to you. If you have an opportunity to be able to text someone real quick, be like, hey, I need you to send me something positive, or contact your network, whatever. Because we all deal with imposter syndrome, but it's how you overcome it every time it creeps up that will make the difference, that will help you live the story that you want to tell.
Thank you again, Dr. Andrews. We have another question here. It says, I love how you talked about your posture when going into a meeting without an invitation. My question relates to others who come to meetings often invited with that posture, not engaged, shrugging, only wanting to speak and not listen. What can we do to address these challenging folks in meetings or outside of the meeting itself?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. I feel like if we figure that out, we can like maybe retire and go to the beach or something. But not to trivialize your question at all, because it is very real. That's a difficult one because we do have people in our meetings that do that. And so for me in that situation, I try to think about what's their talent that they can give for this particular meeting or this particular project or whatever. And I try to get them to hone in on that talent. Now you have people who of course want to give opinion and voice about a lot of things. And so you have to remember that you cannot control other people, but you can control the way that you respond. You can control the way that you project your nonverbal cues. You can control a lot and everything of you. And so for me, a lot of people have said, you have so much patience. And I'm like, okay. But I do, because while other people will enter meetings with an agenda already and they're ready to go ahead and say what they want to say, get everything that they want to get out on the table and stuff. Again, I enter into a meeting in a posture of wanting to listen and learn and contribute. And so I don't take things personal, because this is business. It's business, and we're not going to necessarily enjoy everyone that we work with, but we still need to work with them because this is business and we have an objective to meet of serving our students and supporting each other. So that's how I deal with it. There also are some times when you may be able to have a side conversation with that person where in a one-on-one interaction, they don't feel like they're being attacked. And so sometimes you can do that. If that is something that you're not willing to do because you're like, I'm trying to protect my energy, that's fine. But there is also a way where in the meeting, if that person is talking, to redirect the conversation. And maybe after a while of redirecting, they'll kind of get the point. If not, then you just continue to redirect the conversation. And I know that this puts a lot of the responsibility on the person that is like, on the person that probably doesn't need to correct their behavior or adjust. But if it's affecting you, then you do have the responsibility of trying to mitigate those factors and redirect the conversation. And again, looking at what they do bring to the table and seeing how you can capitalize on that for the project and move on. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, I think it did. Definitely. Thank you. Next question. You're very popular, Dr. Andrews. What would you say to anyone who has challenged your just genuineness, authenticity, and suggested it might hinder your opportunity? How do you discern the real mentors from the haters?
Yeah. These questions are great because a lot of this is stuff that I've really been thinking about. And I have been told, you're too nice. Or when someone gives me a compliment about being nice, it's usually followed up with a but or you need to. And so I draw a lot of my strength from the people who were around me when I was growing up. And my godmother always said to me, it's nice to be nice. And as I mature in my career and in life, I am learning the true value of it's nice to be nice. And I look at her life and how she has prospered because of how nice she has been. Now, being nice, of course, people think you're a pushover. People think that, they can just treat you in any kind of way and get away with it and stuff. And maybe in that moment, they will get away with it. But eventually, it'll probably catch up with them. But I am not going to change who I am as far as what I project, my happiness, my joy, my niceness, for no one. Now, do I get mad and upset and frustrated? Absolutely. But I give myself a timeline and say, okay, at this time, like it's going to be over. We're going to go get some ice cream. We're getting back to happy, or we getting back to optimistic. because I refuse to give someone free rent in my head, in my life, when they have not earned it. Nope, I refuse. I have worked and fought too hard to be who I am, sharing with you today, to let anyone make me turn and be someone that I'm not. And so from my godmother telling me it's nice to be nice, and my best friend sharing with me, and my brother recently sharing with me, it's like, remain true to who you are. Just because someone does things in spite of you or to be spiteful or whatever, doesn't mean that you have to return that, because that's not who you are. So I try to maintain and be true to who I am and be true to my core values. And like I shared earlier, one of my core values is integrity.
Thank you, Dr. Andrews. So this question kind of brings it back to the beginning of the career. It's simple as, what advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your career? And I'll go even a little further. Do you feel at times you were renting? And when was that aha moment of, I don't want to rent anymore. I want to sell. I want to own.
Yeah. So I'll start with answering that question. So for me, when I graduated from UCF with my bachelor's degree, I literally walked across the stage and was like, I don't want to do anything related to this degree. I had a job lined up that I turned down, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And so I figured out I wanted to teach. And so I did alternative certification. And so I go in my first year teaching. That didn't work out. So then I ended up coming back to UCF part-time as a summer advisor, and it turned into an opportunity to work full-time. It wasn't any benefits, but at the time I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So it was an opportunity to make money, to make income, to pay bills. And so as I was working, the director at the time and another one of the VPs, they were sharing with me, if you want to work in higher ed, you should go on and get your master's degree. And I'm like, and what? They're like, higher ed, student personnel. And I was like, okay. And so I started getting a master's degree. I didn't know why I was getting a master's degree. I was getting a master's degree because they told me, and I respected them. And so at this time, I'm totally renting. I am renting, and I am following the advice that had been handed to me. And I'm just going about life because, like, they said I should do this. So, okay, I guess it's going to be good. And so I'm renting. And then as I get into the program a little bit more, and I'm sitting there in class, and this is where the imposter syndrome is also kicking in, because everybody else know why they're there, and I'm just there because my boss told me I should do this, and the VP said I should do this, and I'm just there. And they're like, oh yeah, at work today I did this, and this is how I can apply this knowledge and stuff, and I'm like, I'm just here. And it wasn't until my second year in the master's program where it was like, ding, 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 ding. This is why you're here. This is why you're here. And I can't share the exact moment or the information because I don't really remember or know exactly what it was. But it wasn't until I was in my second year where I was like, oh, I get it. And so when I got it, and I was like, okay, this is my experience. I'm taking these classes. I'm getting these grades. I'm paying for it because, again, I was OPS. So I'm paying. I didn't have the tuition waiver. I'm paying for this by myself. when I got it. And in that moment, I started owning my journey in completing my master's. Notice how I said owning my journey and completing my master's, not my job. Because in my job, I was still like, okay, whatever, I'm here, just hand me what you want. And once things clicked with the master's, things started clicking a little bit more with the work that I was doing. And I was like, wait a minute, these are my students. If they fail and the retention number is not good, and I have more students on probation than not, these my students. Like, that's gonna look bad on me. And so that's when I started owning my career. Even though, again, I was just OPS. Like, if the institution closed for something, like, I wasn't getting paid. And that was the year of Hurricane Charlie and everybody else that year. So I had a whole bunch of days off. I didn't get paid. But I was still like, these are my students. They're my responsibility. I got to do this. And so I started owning my career. I started thinking creatively, how can I intervene with these students before they get in those struggle moments? How can I work with this at-risk population that the institution is taking a chance on by letting them in to make sure that they're successful? But I'm very competitive. So not only did I want my students to be successful, I wanted my students to be more successful than all the other students too. And so I dug in and I was like, I just got on fire. And I remember going to my director and saying, I would like to start a peer mentor program because I think it would do this. And I had research to back it up. And she's like, well, you don't have a budget. I was like, you're right. I don't have a budget. I was like, but what I do have is a will. I was like, and if I have a will, I'm gonna find a way. And in that moment, I shared with her, it is my desire to also gain experience with budgeting. It's also my desire to gain experience with developing programs. It's also my desire to be able to supervise individuals. And so I was owning my career and I was asking for more. I was asking for specific and intentional things where I had data and research to back it up. And so yeah, I started UCF not owning my career, started a master's program that I was paying for, renting. And then eventually it clicked. And so, Courtney, what was the first part of the question?
It was, so do you feel the risk that we take the step out into the areas?
Oh, the younger self.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the next question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Next question. It's about the younger self, kind of, where were you at in your career then?
Yeah, I would tell my younger self, oh my gosh. I would tell my younger self that there are going to be some struggle days. And that when you came to UCF and you sat in your academic advisor's office crying because you didn't want to be there, it was October and you was like, I'm done, I don't want to be here. And she looked at you and she told you to shut up and get up and figure it out. I would tell myself that you will do such an amazing job of figuring out. You will do such a great job of falling and failing forward. And you may fall down, but you will not stay there. I would just fill my younger self up with so much positivity that the bold me that I am today would be the boldest me yesterday.
Awesome. So that next question, it said, do you feel that the risks we take to step out and into other areas can only make our personal brand better and allow us to take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves and will allow us to grow and be better to UCF as a whole?
Mm-hmm. I would answer that question only if you allow it. Because people can step out and just step out because they like, okay, I'm gonna step out. But it's about, why are you stepping out? Why are you wanting to make your personal brand better? Why are you wanting to make UCF better? Do you want to make the institution better? So it's all about you, and do you want to, and how does it serve you? Because so many times we can step out but not necessarily know why we're stepping out. Like I was just sharing with starting my master's degree. I stepped out and started a master's degree and wasn't even sure why I was doing it. So when you're able to step out and you know that you're owning your journey, then you know why you're stepping out.
Awesome. And we're going to take a few more questions here, just about to Dr. Andrews.
Okay.
How do you figure out what is the best location in your story? So, and I think that goes back to you not being from Orlando, right? But you own the community. So.
Yeah. So for me, when it came to the downtown campus specifically, I grew up in a small town where everyone, not everyone, but pretty much you knew each other. My town was like a Friday Night Lights thing. Like if you weren't at somebody's football game, you were probably listening to it on the radio or whatever. And so I just remember that community feeling. My great uncle would call me after every single game on Friday night, and I got to give him a rundown of the game and also what we did in band and stuff. And so I just remember that community feeling. I had also had experience as an undergraduate working with the McKnight Achievers program. And so I was familiar with the Callahan Center and what the center meant to the community. I had served as the advisor for the John T. Washington Honor Society. And so they had a connection with the New Image Youth Center. And so, and then MSC, when we would do the MLK parade, we would always do a tour of the Wells-Built Museum. And so I had these different pieces of connection to the Paramore community. And so for me, when we said we were going to build a campus downtown with Valencia, and we also said that our goal was to be of the community and not just in the community. That right then let me know I, as UCF employee, I need to be a part of that. Because when residents see things and hear things, they're not pointing out Courtney, they're not pointing out Dr. Ortiz, they're not pointing out Lucas or anybody else. They're pointing out UCF. And I am UCF. And so in that situation, I wanted to make sure that I held my institution accountable for being of the community. And I needed to do my part. And so for me, the location was to get a connection to the downtown campus, to solidify a connection for the downtown campus so that I could be a part of being of the community. Now, what location is for you? I don't know. It all depends on what story are you trying to tell. You know, if you're looking at doing something more in the mental health realm, then that's a location that you want to be able to look and see where are their locations, where are there meetings that are happening, or what are conversations that are happening that you can be a part of. But for my story, because I wanted to hold our institution accountable for what they said that they would do in the community, they said to the residents, what they said to the city of Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer, I needed to be a part of the planning process for the downtown campus.
And Dr. Andrews, you mentioned the Midnight Achiever. I was a Midnight Achiever, and I won't tell you the inductee year because I'll be aging myself.
I was a mentor. I'm aging myself. Like, I did the summer camps when the students came on campus. We had a great time, and it was a great opportunity for me to give back to a community that I wasn't a part of, but accepted me into their community.
Yeah, my parents worked heavily with the program, so that's great. This is an awesome question. So renting versus owning. Thinking of the metaphor of renting versus owning, do you think that we should be thinking of what kind of down payment, quote unquote, we might need to make the transition in order to go from renting into the owning phase?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a great question. I might have to include that in when I talk about this again one day. I would say my initial thoughts about the down payment, and I reflect on things, so I may even develop this more later on. But the initial down payment is you making the decision of, are you going to rent or are you going to own? And then how do you follow up with actions that show you are owning and no longer renting? Because the first thing that changes when you go from renting to owning is a mindset. You have a different type of hustle. You have a different type of way of thinking about things. You probably will think more strategically. And so the initial down payment is you and your willingness to commit to putting in the work to change your actions, change your language.
Thank you. What are some steps you suggest for us to help shift, right? We talked about the mindset just before, the focus of our story to improve it, to improve a self view. And again, I'm going to go out here and said, if working with students, they always look for some type of formula of some sort, right? And we know that there may not be an exact formula. But if you were to, I call them breadcrumbs to the student, put out some breadcrumbs there, what would that look like, to help shift that focus and your story and begin to improve it?
Yeah, I would say really start with, what are your core values? What are your core values? Because your story in some shape or form should be connected to your core values. Or when you're sharing your core values, people can see that, like, oh yeah, she does do that. Yeah, that is her. They should be able to see that. So I would say, look at your core values. I mean, we all have things that we value, but what's at the core of who you are? What's at the, you touch this, like, we gonna fight. I would say other breadcrumbs that I would offer some, and I'll just talk from my personal experience, is that I read a lot. And I'm trying to get into audiobooks, but I'm so old school. I like the books. I like the feel of a book. I like highlighting. I like writing in the margins and stuff. But I read a lot. I read different types of books, everything from historical books. I'm a low-key history buff. I love documentaries. I also read some self-help books, professional books. I read a lot. And so one of the books that I read that was recommended by a consultant that I worked with at the time was called The One. And it's talking about what's your one thing that kind of permeates everything that you do in your professional and personal life. And so he recommended I read this book, and I read the book, and it was great. It was a quick read. And by the time I hit the third chapter, I was like, I got it. And so my one thing is I'm an educator. I'm an educator. And I think back to when I graduated with a degree in advertising public relations. I thought that's what I wanted to do, but in all actuality, I actually wanted to teach. I wanted to be a part of making a difference. And so being an educator allows you to make a difference. It allows you to have opportunity to share with others, to teach them new things, to help them with the aha moments. And so, yeah, I read a lot of different books. I also, I do this. I recently did the strengths assessment, and I look back at my strengths assessment from 2017 to now, and it's changed. And so that also helps me to understand myself a little bit better, and how I operate. And recently I had a presenter come in and talk to my team about the strengths assessment, and she encouraged us to really look beyond just those top 5 strengths, to look at the top 10, and then to also look at the bottom ones as well, to see how we're situated on the entire realm of, I believe it's 34 strengths. And so I do that. I also, too, I take time to reflect. I sit down and I say, Edwana, and she'd be like, yeah, girl, what we doing today? I'm like, we need to figure this out. We just need to stop, and we just need to be. And in those times I'll journal. So I do a multitude of things. And so, Courtney, you said it yourself, there isn't like this one size fit all formula where you can get A plus B equals C and X. It's not. It really is. It's personal. It's personal. And it's about you kind of making the space and being open and willing to be on a journey. And one of the books that I really love, that just like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's not my story, but I'm like, a lot of her story, I'm like, what she said, her nuggets are just great, is Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. And the whole premise and the foundation and the undergirding of that book is that we are all in the process of becoming. And so since we're always in the process of becoming, we're always evolving, we're always progressing. And so with that, we also need to be able to give ourselves grace, because we're not going to get everything perfect the first time. We're not going to get everything right. We're not going to have everyone that likes and loves us and who are our fans and stuff. And so we have to give ourselves grace in our process of becoming.
Awesome, Dr. Andrews. And I think that was a perfect conclusion. We want to thank you again for coming here today and being flexible and being our keynote. We really do appreciate your message on, are you living your story? Are you living the story you want to sell? Otherwise,
Are you living the story you want to tell?
Oh, I'm sorry. Living the story you want to sell, when we talked about renting and owning.
Yeah. I mean, you could sell a lot of things, but you want to tell.
But are you living the story you want to tell? Otherwise, are you owning or renting? So thank you, Dr. Andrews. And we look forward in the future to other conversations and elaborating, right, on this concept of owning what we do.
Yes.
Yeah. Up next at 10:30, we have Dr. Deborah German, Dean of the College of Medicine, who will be speaking on leadership and building the life you want. The Zoom information is being provided in the chat. Dr. German has asked that everyone turn on the camera. She wants to see all your lovely faces if you are in the space to do so. So as we prepare for our transition, also be prepared for those cameras on. Also, just a shameless plug here, LEP applications are open for the 2021-2022 cohort. So we encourage you, if eligible, to experience this journey. So again, we're going to take about 5 to 7 minute transition here. You should see that information for the next session in the chat, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.